for coming out to this. Really excited to get into kind of some of the meat of today's event. I think there's going to be some exciting presentations and announcements that you'll see for the rest of the day. I get the pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, our keynote speaker today. Mitchell Hora. Mitchell grew up is a 7th generation Washington County, Iowa farmer, where he farms with his parents, managing a 700-acre corn, soybeans, and rye operation. While studying agronomy and ag systems technology at Iowa State, Mitchell launched Continuum, a soil health data intelligence company. Upon launching the topsoil tool, Continuum became the first to market in the soil health data management space and has since grown their footprint to cover 38 states and 15 countries. The company scales its regenerative ag management services by working with groups such as Rabobank, Land O'Lakes, John Deere, SIBO, and a global consultant network. Mitchell practices regenerative systems on his own farm and has earned awards, including being named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. And I know Mitchell's got a good presentation for us today, and he's going to hopefully leave time for some questions at the end, and he can give some good practical on-farm advice about the first couple steps to take if you want to head down this path. So Mitchell, you can come up and take the stage. Thanks, Spencer.
I like moving around way too much. I can't just stand here behind this podium. Get all rigged up here and see if it's going to go. Testing. Sounds good. Sweet. Yeah, like I said, I can't just stand back behind there. I got to move around here and give this talk. But Spencer, thanks for the intro. Really excited to be up here today, presenting to everybody, kind of sharing some ideas on what we've got going on. I feel like I'm really loud. Am I really loud? Not that bad? Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep going. As Spencer said, I'm 7th generation on my family's farm, right about 3 hours south of here. So excited to get out in the fields here in just another couple of weeks. And but I'm going to share a little bit today on some of the stuff we've been doing on our farm, some of the things I see coming down the path overall in terms of soil health and sustainability, and then also just sharing some of our story and just telling you guys kind of where we're at, where we're heading in terms of Continuum Ag. So Spencer already kind of told about me being 7th generation and all that. And the 8th generation was just born about 4 months ago. So it's been a fun journey. But for me, legacy, family resilience, relentless innovation is really what we're going to talk about here today. My family's been farming some of our ground for 150 years, just like a lot of you guys on your family farms up here too. Long term, that legacy is super important. And now as we go down this world of regenerative ag, soil health, sustainability, we know it tried and true on our family farms. But now we can tell that story to the world, and also we can improve our profitability because of it. As I said, we're going to hit on relentless innovation here today. And on our family's 7th generation farm, we've been continuing to improve. Our farm looked like this a long time ago, utilizing the plow, just like a lot of you guys' farm stuff as well. It's fun for me to pull back out some of these old pictures. I'm 7th generation on one side of my family operation, 6th on the other. This is on my mom's side of the operation. These photos come from. They farm over by Muscatine, West Liberty kind of area. And then our farm is down by Washington. So that family legacy, of being involved in the farm, being able to show, how things change, utilize new technology to continue to progress. I love this note that my grandma had on the back of this picture that my grandpa Ron bought this new tractor right before my grandparents got married. It cost $3,000. And grandma was all worried because she went into that they started their marriage in debt, $3,000. I graduated from Iowa State in 2017. And I bought 40 acres of land right around the corner from mom and dad's farm for $358,000. This was nothing. My wife has way worse. We got a long way to go. But fun to see some of the, the old technology and stuff. And from that time, then we started looking into conservation and these principles. I've actually got in the slide deck multiple times that from that standard of doing things, farmers started taking a look at maybe can we start reducing some of this tillage, and do we not have to use the moldboard plow anymore? There you saw a photo there of a disc as well, starting to reduce tillage. And the whole point here of my talk today being relentless innovation. We have to relentlessly innovate, do better on the farm, but do better in the world of technology and investment and everything that you guys touch here as well. These principles are going to continue to come up to care for that soil, keep living roots on the ground at all times, and really enable that the soil is alive. We started really looking into that, and Washington County, Iowa is a unique place that there was a group of farmers that were banded together to learn from each other, to go out on farmer field trips and stuff just like this, where you can see these guys were out on a field trip looking at no-tilled soybeans. These are 30-inch soybeans, no-tilled into, you can see the old corn stubble there. And these guys were looking at, this stuff. This photo would have been from the late 70s, that these guys were out doing these field trips, go down to farmers' fields and go see what's going on. Today, we call this Twitter. So they got old photos and stuff of my granddad and dad and uncles and stuff that were going and doing these same practices and stuff too. And when my dad went back to school, he brought back with him a mindset of relentless innovation as well, that they grew up going and learning from other farmers, and they had to do it all manual. They were doing it at the coffee shop, and they were doing it at these farm tours. And dad was able to take that and kind of go further. What's really fun on this, because I'm the little guy in the photo here. So dad's got a booklet there that we're going through. And on the map, you can see the colored squares and the grids. This is when they started doing grid soil sampling. I believe he said it was 4.4 acre grids at the time, which makes, I don't know why, I haven't gotten explained on why they did 4.4. And now a lot of people do 2.5s, but interesting to see, being able to go from implementing those conservation practices to now, how do we better manage fertilizer and take this further? But they were making their maps with colored pencil and crayon and stuff like that. And I'm going to show you here later how we make our maps today. I've got Campbell, one of my employees, with me. We'd spend a lot of time coloring maps if we still had to do it with colored pencil here, Campbell. But from there, they were getting really pushed into this soil health pathway and stuff. My dad and granddad started no-tilling corn in 1978. We've been 100% no-till soybeans since 1986. And by relentless innovation, they were able to have really good success with it early on, winning contests and showing that we don't need to utilize tillage, especially to grow really big soybean crops. And even in those hard years, being able to understand that, okay, by reducing tillage, we can still have really great success in corn and soybeans. And without knowing it, they were going down this soil health pathway. They were becoming regenerative farmers. To be a regenerative farmer means that you are continuously improving and implementing the principles of soil health. What's really interesting, those farmers were learning from each other before it was ever called soil health or regenerative ag. My dad and granddad started implementing this stuff before it was ever soil health or regenerative ag, before a carbon market or any of these things we're going to get into now. So when I came back to the operation, or right before I came back, I was up at Iowa State, and dad wanted to push further down this soil health pathway and start implementing cover crops. And in our first year, our corn looked like this. We drilled in cover crops in the fall of 2015, no-tilled corn into cereal rye, and our corn looked like crap. The corn on the left was the corn planted into cover crop. The corn on the right is our stuff that was just regular no-till. And you can see the 1.5 foot height difference there between those corn, just a mess. And obviously very clear on exactly where the line was. If you look real close, you can see some of the cover crop residue down in there on the bottom left of the picture. We thought that we were implementing some of these soil health principles and just using this cover crop that was going to be the next greatest thing. And it really bit. We screwed it up. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. We threw off the carbon to nitrogen ratio. We planted a grass into a grass and had a really bad experience. Our biological activity was way out of whack. We screwed up the system. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. We didn't have the right data. We didn't have the right resources around us, and we really screwed it up. And the microbes utilized all of our nitrogen to break down all that cover crop. That corn yielded 245. We were still fine. But the corn that was right next to it, that good looking stuff, did 265. So we lost 20 bushel yield that year. But we were able to take a look at where did we screw things up, what went wrong. We identified that that carbon to nitrogen ratio was way thrown out of whack because we didn't understand that that soil is alive. We didn't understand that soil is alive and that in 1 teaspoon of our healthy Iowa soils, there's more microbes than there are people on the earth. Okay, at the beginning, it was, well, here's this no-till stuff, so we don't have to spend as much money on tillage and on diesel fuel. Here's this cover crop stuff. It's going to help on erosion. Throw it all out there and it's going to be the greatest thing. Well, we lost $100 an acre. In 1 teaspoon of healthy Iowa soil, there are more microbes than there are people on the earth. Over 8 billion microbes in a teaspoon. And if we treat them like dirt, we screw it up, and it screwed up our yields, and we lost $100 because of it. So the problem there was we threw out this cover crop, and we only had our traditional grid soil sample data, kind of like Dad had on his colored pencil book, which now we've, of course, had digitized. The fertilizer wasn't returning the gains that we needed. And we didn't have those right tools to understand how to actually implement these regenerative systems in a systematic manner. And we knew that a lot of other farmers were having the same kind of issues. This is Washington County, where there's lots of farmers that were starting down the cover crop and the no-till pathway at this time. So we were implementing those regenerative ag principles back into this, that we knew that we needed to keep armor on the soil. We didn't want to disturb the soil with too much chemistry or too much tillage. We wanted to keep living roots. We wanted to get more diversity into the system, and we had to do it within the context of our operation. That's a really important one. But we were screwing it up. We didn't have the right resources to help us. Enter Continuum Ag. So while I was at Iowa State, I was actually at an internship up in Minnesota in the summer of 2015. I got exposed to this Haney soil health test, which allowed us to quantify biological activity, to quantify water extractable carbon, which is the liquid carbon that microbes eat. We can quantify the organic nitrogen that the microbes use to eat the carbon. And we can quantify all those nutrients and things that we were used to as well. Essentially opened my eyes to a tool that mimicked nature, that we could better understand and quantify the soil as a living, breathing ecosystem, and quantify that soil and quantify all those microbes, those billions and billions of microbes that are in there. With a better understanding of this data, we started to make more sense and started to be able to actually understand how to improve the profitability on our operation while implementing these regenerative systems. So we started off doing a bunch of trials, and we still have a variety of trials like this. We're going to hit on the ag launch stuff. This one's not our ag launch trial, but we have one really similar on the ag launch one as well, where we ran grid samples versus the zone soil health samples. This is just looking at phosphorus savings on today's DAP fertilizer prices, which is what I actually ran it to. And the recommendation on the left versus the recommendation that the Haney test provided on the right, we were able to save over $1,600 in fertilizer on this 75-acre field or so, equating to $21 an acre in improved savings by better understanding our soil data. This enabled us to be able to put dollars back into our pocket. We spent $10 an acre on the soil samples, and just in one fertilizer application, more than doubled our money. Better understanding what we actually need to grow a crop. So how did this actually work? Well, that Haney test allows us to quantify our organic nutrients that are in the soil, plus our inorganic, like we've always done with grid soil sampling. It was a tool to help us to innovate to the next level, that the soil is much more complex than what we originally thought it was. And now we had new tools to enable us to make better decisions on the farm. We started doing a bunch of this soil sampling for a bunch of farmers. I graduated from Iowa State in 2017 with degrees in agronomy and ag systems technology. And I thought I was just going to do a crop consulting company, small scale, be back in Washington County. I bought the farm. I was going to farm and was going to do crop consulting. But we started amassing a bunch of data, and I needed a better way to deliver that data to my farmers. There wasn't a data tool out there, and I didn't want to build a bunch of really cool stuff into somebody else's tool. So we built our own, and our tool is called Topsoil. It's an online platform. It's the first tool that enables growers to be able to actually quantify and map their soil health. At the end of the day, you still get how much potash do I need? How much lime do I need? How much nitrogen do I need? And what have you. It's still the same output that we need to actually make a better decision on the farm, but we get there utilizing the latest technologies. Today, we're on a mission to help 1 million farmers profit from improved soil health and utilizing digital tools to help us to get there. Campbell's our 24th employee, and as Spencer said in the intro, we currently cover 38 states and 15 countries. Here's kind of a snapshot of where we're at from a North America basis. And what we're able to do is go to a farmer and help them to integrate in their existing data. Meet farmers where they're at. All you guys on your operations, here's where we're at today. We've been doing the best that we can to get to this point. We've been continuously, relentlessly innovating. We're doing a darn good job. So here's where we're at today. And we go to farms, work with the local agronomist, pool together all the data to say, here's where we're at today. And then we take a look into the future of where do we want to be? Where's point B? Where do we want to get to? And then utilizing our data tools, utilizing our systems, we help farmers systematically get from point A to point B. So that when you jump into regen ag, you don't lose $100 an acre like we did. This is massively important as we continue to scale. Across the country, there's only about 4% of farms are using cover crops. Only about 35% using no-till. Those numbers are going to continuously expand in the US, and those are a little bit older numbers. I think it's probably a little bit more updated, but those are the most recent actual stats I can go off of. In Iowa, we're nearing 2 million acres of cover crops. But to hit our nutrient reduction strategy goal, we got to get to 12.5 million acres. And if we have more and more of these farmers that start adding cover crop and lose $100 an acre like we did, how the heck are we ever going to be able to get there? To get to 12.5 million acres, we've got to be able to enable more farmers to learn from each other, like my dad and granddad and stuff were doing on their bus tours back in the 70s and 80s. We just got to scale that and digitize it. And we've been able to innovate to be able to do that for our farmers. So what farmers do is they log into our platform, plug in their fields, and then they populate a really quick survey. This cuts the data collection time from one of my farmers enrolled in an existing carbon program. It took him 60 hours to accumulate all the data that he needed to enroll in one of these sustainability programs, carbon programs, 60 hours. We cut that down to under 60 minutes. And actually, we can run through this and it takes about 20 minutes. But I like to say 60 because 60 hours, 60 minutes sounds good. But it actually only takes about 20 to 30. So from that profile, we populate, okay, here's where we're at today. Here's all of our existing soil data. Our data on the farm is finally becoming really valuable. Step number one, get all of our ducks in a row because all of our data is all over the place. I know you guys is ours, plenty of ours is still all over the place. We got to have it all pulled together into one simplified spot. And we've got to enable that. So we start there and then we say, here's your regen roadmap. Here's where you want to get to. And we put together all the piece by piece components to enable you to have success. To learn from our group of over 1,300 other farmers globally, to pull together, here's how we can all learn from each other in the ag community to make sure that nobody has that $100 an acre loss like we did. And we also showcase your financial projections here too. This has been a really, really cool new tool that we just launched a couple months ago, where from your farm profile of all your practices that you're doing today, we can run Iowa State numbers, or you can plug in your own numbers to show what kind of practices would you like to adopt? What's the risk at the beginning? Because there's still risk. We don't want it to be $100 an acre risk. We want to minimize that. And there's cost share and there's carbon programs and there's better digital tools to overcome the risk at the beginning to improve your profitability and enable you to be successful long-term. This has been a really, really big time game changer for us to be able to go to any farm and be able to show, hey, here's where we got to be careful. Let's overcome this risk, but here's an opportunity of a brighter future. Enabling farmers to actually take control of their own finances, be able to help them get there. From our soil sampling, we looked at all of our farms that we worked on this past fall and looked at, just like the trial that I showed before, the example, we looked at the regular way of making fertilizer recommendations versus our way. And the difference in the fertilizer to be applied, we were able to cut the farmer fertilizer bill by an average of $106.24 per acre. Because fertilizer prices are through the roof right now. And so many farmers hitting us up saying, holy crap, what am I going to do with super high fertilizer? It's $7.50 corn though. We don't want to lose yield, but geez, like I can't even hardly get the fertilizer, let alone I don't want to pay for all of it. So we utilize better data to enable farmers to make sure that they've got the right information to make a better decision. And on average, that put $106 an acre back into our farmers' pockets. Our total value that we created for our farmers last year was $1.8 million. Really, really excited about that, to put 1.8 million back into those farms' pockets. And I know this room, that's you guys' number one passion, improve farm profitability. It's been awesome for us to be able to document and show exactly what our value was. 1.8 million, like, okay, let's scale. Let's figure out how to do this further. So here's a couple examples of kind of what this looks like. So being able to map this out, this is the same farm that I showed before, but what we're seeing is that as we implement these principles of soil health, your soil becomes much more biologically inclined. Your microbes really take over. Your soil becomes much more organic chemistry driven, much more biologically driven. Your soil's healthier, it's pumping. And it's pumping because we get this organic carbon down into it, the liquid carbon to feed the microbes, and we can quantify it. And we can show you how to improve that. And as you improve your organic carbon, you can improve your organic matter. And 58% of organic matter is the carbon that the carbon companies want to pay us for. And we can quantify that as well, but I'm not going to get into that today. And then we still make the variable rate fertilizer recommendation, just like what you're used to from getting with your local agronomist. We want to work with that local agronomist too. That's how we have to scale. We've got to work together as an ag community to get more agronomists, more farmers on board, all working together, relentlessly innovating to implement these principles of soil health. So how's it worked for our farm? Well, over the past couple of years, we've cut our total fertilizer by more than 45%. We've been able to cut our pesticides by 75%. This is a soybean field. There's beans in there that are about knee high. That's 5 foot tall cereal rye. I'm not going to get into all the agronomy stuff. Spencer kind of teed that up. We can take questions, but geez, we'll be here for 4 hours if we talk about all the actual agronomy stuff we're doing on our farm. But being able to utilize these tools as an offensive management system is the key. As we've been able to push and as we've been able to innovate here, we've had to have a change of mindset on our farm. That crop residue, those microbes, caring for those microbes, utilizing cover crops, utilizing diversity, that is our offensive management tool. Okay, I really think, especially for this area and for Des Moines Lobe and stuff, that cover crops have been branded wrong, and no-till and stuff. It's been branded as a defensive management tool. Defense against erosion, defense against water quality issues. And for you guys that have super heavy flat black soils, it's hard for us to see that as farmers. We're very visual. But really, that cover crop that you see there, that's my nutrient stabilizer. That in that cover crop above ground there's more than 100 pounds of nitrogen sitting in all that, over 8,000 pounds of biomass sitting right there, gobs and gobs of carbon, all these micronutrients and stuff. That's my nutrient stabilizer. It's also my herbicide program. You think a weed's going to grow through there? No. But it's going to melt down, and it's also going to control the water too. It's going to avoid evaporation of the water. This was from last summer. And it was a day in June that it was 91 degrees outside that day. Nice, hot summer day. At the top of this cover crop canopy, the temperature was 100 degrees. The soil down below where my knee-high soybeans are at, the soil was 76 degrees. It's perfect. And those soybeans, although the neighbor stuff and other farms in the area, their soybeans were burned up. The corn was all pineappled up. We were really, really dry. But those soybeans down there were in perfect conditions. And they still ended up yielding well over 70 bushel the acre with one pass of herbicide, no fertilizer. We've improved our organic matter by an average of 1.4% since 2010 in doing this stuff. In carbon terms, you guys are all hearing about carbon stuff, and I'm going to hit on it just briefly, but in carbon speak, 1.4% organic matter correlates to 4.9 tons of carbon per acre per year to a depth of a meter deep. 4.9 tons. It's a lot of carbon. But what I like most about it is that 1% organic matter stores 26,000 gallons of water. And that I can now better infiltrate the water too, because I've got aggregate stability. I've got water infiltration. The average water infiltration across the country is a 1/2 of an inch of rainfall infiltration per hour. We got plenty of rain coming down. You guys aren't quite as wet up here as what we've been. We've had more of the rains here in the last couple of days, and there's just water running everywhere because nobody's got good water infiltration. When that rain comes, it doesn't matter how much rainfall we get on our farms, it's how much rain we actually get into our soil. We can't have that water just running right off of our fields, causing issues downstream down to the Gulf of Mexico. We got to get that water down into our soils. The average across the country is a 1/2 of an inch of infiltration per hour. We can infiltrate a 1-inch rainfall in less than 6 seconds. We can infiltrate 4 inches of rain in less than 5 minutes. So we don't have replant anymore. We have the minimum crop insurance that you can get because it's free because of the IDAL's crop or cover crop program. So we're like, well, shoot, might as well. And it keeps us in the loop with other programs, but we don't utilize any other government programs at all anymore. And because we're resilient on our own, we built up our soils to be more resilient on their own. And last year we had record soybean yields too. I know a lot of you guys had great yields last year too. And so did we with hardly anything going into it. So the last kind of stuff, and I'm probably already getting too long and want to get wrapped up, but so where's this going? Okay, so we've got to continuously implement these principles and relentlessly innovate. That's the whole point. But now all these other outside companies, the taxpayer, government, big supply chain organizations, they all want us to help them to meet their sustainability goals. We're now talking at the trillions of dollar level that wants to go into this. Okay. Well, I'll put my website and stuff at the end, but we've got a podcast that my new podcast, I have 2 different ones, but my new podcast is called the Topsoil Podcast. Spencer was our guest this week. So you'll definitely want to check that out, of course. But one of our other guests we had here recently was the global head of sustainability at Bank of America. Bank of America alone has pledged to put 1.5 trillion towards sustainability by 2030. 1.5 trillion, one bank. And they're putting it towards things that are carbon positive projects and improve water quality projects and these type of things. And the great thing about sustainable agriculture and agriculture in general is that by implementing principles, we can stack these outcomes. Today, agriculture contributes to about 10 to 12% of the US's carbon footprint and about 15% of the global carbon footprint. But we're one of the few industries that can actually lower all of our emissions to be net zero, but go even further to actually offset other people's emissions too. That's why they're looking at us to be able to do this. And they're looking at us because we can stack these outcomes. So these carbon markets are coming really quick. I don't encourage any of you to necessarily go and get signed up for one today. It's not the point. If you're interested or if you're being hit up by one, I'm happy to chat and provide you some feedback. I'm not enrolled in one. When I do, I'm sure it'll be I'll be very public about it. But today I've not taken a dollar for carbon. We're working with a lot of companies though who are paying farmers for carbon. Because what's happening is that companies like Rabobank and Land O'Lakes and Deere and all these guys, they're saying, okay, we know that there's huge opportunity here. There's trillions of dollars. We've got to help our farmers to be in position to, number one, just be more resilient long-term, but also to capture some of these dollars. So these companies are coming to us saying, hey, here's some farmers, help them do the thing. And they pay us to help the farmers go from point A, like I showed, here's your profile, here's your soil data, here's where you're at today, here's where we want to be. We got to implement these principles and we help them get there. Same thing that we do for our farmers direct. Now we do for these guys as farmers at scale. Just pulling together the data from out in the field, run it through topsoil. And now we've got all that farmer data there where the farmer owns their own data. Super important. You've got to own your own data. And then we can help you to connect it to the right folks, just the bits and pieces that they actually need. Now, carbon markets are still a mess. I don't really like them that much. They got a lot of work that they need to do but there's a huge opportunity here. They're definitely not going away. And there's a lot of money that's going to this. And there's real opportunities for our family farms. My whole point, my whole mission in all this is to help to revitalize rural communities and put dollars back in family farmers' pockets. That's what I care about. And new revenue streams and a new outlook on agriculture and a positive connection between the farm and the consumer. Hey, it's a great opportunity. Great opportunity for ag to showcase that we can be part of so many solutions to not only provide the food and the fuel and the fiber for the world, but to also offset the global carbon footprint and to also improve the world's water quality and the nutrient density of the crops and so many other things. So we're working on a couple different projects, stuff to be able to do that. But and basically, like I said, Topsoil and our company is just helping to connect the ag community to these large groups. Because as you guys have kind of seen, plenty of these groups of these companies that don't know what the heck they're doing. My buddy Paul will tell you, a lot of these guys that are running these programs, they don't know what the heck they're doing because it's so new and they need us so bad. And we've been able to really get in to help these guys to understand that you've got to focus on these principles. So many of these groups are just saying, no, just do some no-till, do some cover crops, and then boom, carbon. No, it's a system here. And it's a process to it. And tossing an extra $15 an acre, or $10 an acre, or $20 an acre, tossing that to a farmer's way and go and fix it. There's too much risk. The opportunity is there. You can be more than money ahead. And if you're going to be doing these things and you can stack some of those payments, sweet, let's do it. Awesome. But you've got to really make sure that you're playing your cards right and getting the right help to help you to get there. This is what it looks like on our farm. I don't want to dig into all this. We've got 10 minutes left. Corn, planting green, slow motion video, super cool. I need to get one of the fancy new planters you got back there, but you haven't given me one yet. So this is what I got. But this is the armor and stuff that we're keeping on our soil. That's corn coming up through there, the diverse covers and all this, like just so much cool opportunity for us to play around with on you guys' farms up here and on our farm down south. 60-inch corn, interseeding with Rantizo and with their stuff. This is all stuff that was fun on with Rantizo and their drone. We're flattened on in June. Big old cover crops and stuff. So that's always fun. Huge radish on the right-hand side, me and my dad, and then big old sun hemp on the left there. All of our soybeans, if the answer to Spencer said something earlier on, ask your question of how do you get started? This is how you start. Cereal rye in the fall, ahead of soybeans, but you've got to plant green. If you're killing it right now and your cover crop's not even hardly up, not hardly doing anything, what good is it? What good is it for you? What good is it for your soil? What good is it for the taxpayer money that went into it? Plant green, let it go, terminate it when the soil gets dry or when the rye starts dropping pollen. We're creating a microclimate for the soybeans in there. They're super happy. They love rye, yada, yada. They nodulate like crazy. We're seeing that after a soybean crop put into these big, heavy covers, I'm now getting a 100 to 120 unit of organic nitrogen credit. What we got, Spencer? I know we got to go. 5 minutes. This is my returns, making awesome money, which is great. My land was supposed to be a write-off to offset the money that my wife is making because she's an entrepreneur too. But it's great being able to do these things and really make it work profitable. Last thing here is there's huge opportunity within this space from the just new money and new big opportunities coming into it. Just about a month and a half ago, the USDA deployed a grant process to put $1 billion into these climate smart commodities. And we're applying for a big chunk of it, working with Rabobank and John Deere in Iowa State and Iowa Soybean and a bunch of others. What we want to develop here, okay, today's carbon markets are essentially privatized cost share. If you want to start using no-till, start using cover crops, they'll pay you for it. Cool. What we want to get to is to be able to quantify the carbon footprint or other outcomes like your water footprint, your nutrient footprint, whatever, your habitat footprint. What is the footprint of a bushel of corn? That's what we want to get to. What's your carbon footprint? What's my carbon footprint? What's Spencer's carbon footprint? What's Paul's carbon footprint? What's Jordan's is going to win because of his products and stuff, but it's fine. But what is the carbon footprint of a bushel of corn? That way we can better showcase our story that we can produce low carbon corn, therefore low carbon fuel, low carbon pork, low carbon whatever, and actually have this as a connected supply chain where we can be rewarded and paid a premium for our grain that's grown in a more sustainable manner that actually offsets and is improving the carbon outcome just because we're producing it here in Iowa. That's where we want to get to. But plenty of stuff online. I try to put out a lot of info, and I'm sticking around all day and stuff too, so we can take some more questions then. But maybe we got time for one or two anyway. But really appreciate you guys having me up. The final piece of all this is no matter where you're at within all this, helping to support technology, thinking about these things on your own farm, thinking about these things for the next generations of your farm. This stuff is going to be a big deal. And we're just trying to help farmers to make sure that they can grasp the opportunities, put dollars back into our family farms, into our rural communities, because when that money goes to family farms, it goes back to those communities, those schools, those churches. That's what we care about. And I think that's what a lot of these groups don't necessarily understand, that it's not just a couple bucks that farmers got to have either. It's long-term resiliency. It's long-term being able to have empowerment on the farm to take better control and work with Mother Nature to solve all these problems. Yeah, but we're running businesses here too. They've got to be profitable. And this path is a good opportunity to be able to do it. Yes, sir. Yeah. Good question. Questions on when you're in grids versus zones. How does that work with the applicators? Yep, they can do it. The key thing there being that, and we can go back to grid, but those grids there are like hundreds of feet by hundreds of feet. Okay, an applicator typically is 90 foot. Just say there's all kinds of different sizes, of course, as you guys know, but say it's 90 foot by 90 foot. We can make the grid at that level versus hundreds of feet. If we go back from our zone to our grid, it's basically going from a vector file back to a raster file and back and forth. It's that kind of stuff. That's right. Yeah. So it's basically when we make the zones, utilizing machine learning to look at a field, look at the spatial variability within a field. We make it utilizing the lines like we had there, which to your point, they're pretty intense. But then when we spit it back out to make the actual application, it normalizes it back out. Yeah, to enable it to go. But what I'm preparing for too is, as you're able to do it, planter row by planter row or strip till row by row, now we can get to this level of granularity.
The most important question is the people that haven't invested.
Yeah. Good question. So yeah, to get in, so we've raised 2 small rounds of funding, and AgVA has been involved in both. We're exploring raising some capital again, maybe in another couple months or so. And yeah, I think there'll be some opportunities available. The big thing for me, it's been really interesting raising capital. As a small town farm kid, like this is not, but it's not been my bread and butter. Spencer's seen the whole time of me giving pitches and stuff. And in our class, with the Papa John deal, I go up there for 3 months. Nobody knows what the heck I'm talking about. And now it's like, okay, here's what we actually do. We help farmers go from point A to point B and make money. That's it. And soil health, worms and microbes and stuff. Cool. But yeah, looking at raising some additional capital because we need to be able to scale and bring on more people. Building technology like this is very expensive. And we've been able to utilize overseas developers and developers here. But so many of these companies, there's a lot of movement towards this and we need to ramp up.
So another comment is I've seen some of your original pictures.
Yeah.
And today is amazing. I've seen so much personal growth, so much professional growth, so much business growth with you. And watching the pitches over the last 4 years, you had the ability to have a conversation and to listen to new ideas. And when they were good new ideas, you were very rapid to implement those.
Yeah.
And that's the personality trait that we should be looking for with the founding, is the ability to listen to good ideas and pivot into that where you're at.
I really appreciate that. And the most important thing here for the founders and us in the room is I'm 27 years old. I don't know that much. And especially when I started this, I was 20 years old and all I could do was listen to everybody else. And I've been so fortunate to be working with AgVA, with the Ag Launch guys, with Ag Startup Engine. A lot of you guys are involved in that too. And we've been very strategic about who we bring in. My actual cap table today is 2 people. That's it. And in our investment stuff, we've kept it very tight knit because in ag here, yeah, we need cash to do this, but we need to work with the right strategic groups that bring something more to the table than just cash. That's been really, really key. So I think that's a key observation. I appreciate that. And yeah, I've been able to really work on, we've got to tell this story. And I'm happy to do it, to be able to be out there and I've been able to get some really great awareness and spread that message. But all of us, yeah, we've got to be able to be there to raise our hands to say, hey, let's go take this to that next level. So appreciate you guys taking the time and having me here to share that and share what we're up to. Excited for the future, and we'll keep you guys posted as we go. Like I said, we got about 1,300 growers in the platform today, and we're trying to help 1 million. So we got a long way to go. Thanks, everyone.